Okay.
Go over this spot. All right, everyone. Let's get started for the Jamestown Local Development Corporation, Wednesday, September 16th, 2020, 6 p.m. We are starting a few minutes behind due to some technical difficulties. So if we could just confirm everyone who's going to be here, please. Stephanie?
Absolutely. Betty Sundquist,
Here.
Tony Dulce,
Here.
Kim Eklund,
Here.
Tom Nelson,
Here.
Vicki McGraw,
Here.
Tim Smeal,
Here.
and we have this Crystal Cernick
Here.
and myself. So that's everyone who had confirmed attending.
Fantastic. So we have, do we have enough for quorum?
3, 4, 5, we do.
Okay. So we have the minutes from August 19th, 2020. Do we have any corrections or changes?
Just the correction of myself not being here.
Okay, so one correction to the minutes for Kim Eklund is put in as present. And will join us, make those changes. We need to vote on approving those with the correction. Okay, so we'll motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
So.
Tony Dulce, second.
Second.
Vicki McGraw, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, financial reports. Any information from staff, Crystal, on financial reports so far?
No, not really any new updates other than what you see. John was not able to join us tonight, but if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. I don't know that too much has changed since last month, other than you'll see the continuation of the loans that have been frozen for the past several months.
Okay. Do you want us to approve the balance sheet as of August 31st, 2020?
Please.
Okay, motion to approve the financials as of August 31st, 2020.
So,
Kim Eklund, second.
Second.
Tony Dulce, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passed. The next item is the loan status discussion. Crystal and your staff, if you'd like to talk to us about some changes in the loans. I know, just to add a preface to this, at the last Jamestown Local Development Corporation meeting, we had some discussions from Councilmember Graham Reinhardt, as well as a couple of other individuals about potential changes to the loan program for JLDC loans. I know there's been some work the staff has been doing from your office, Crystal, along with Stephanie. So tell us a bit about what you guys are coming with us today.
So we'll back up just a bit to the status of the loan, the current loans that have been frozen, and where we are in terms of that. We had agreed, the board had agreed that interest-only payments would be approved. And I'll let Stephanie take over because she's actually been the one that's been in direct contact with all of our loanees.
Right. So everyone was given that offer to freeze, and we actually had 2 come forward and say they would rather pay principal plus the interest. So that was encouraging. And we may have just a few more. We only had 2 that were considering requests for hardship, and only 1 submitted anything for us to review, and that was IoT. So, and that's only 1. So I think that shows that everyone's been very resilient through this with the COVID situation, and they're all very, very hopeful that they're going to return to normal real soon. So I was very, very pleased to see, especially it was like Nouveau and Crown Street that said that they would go back to paying principal plus interest because they just want to get it paid off. Cool. Yeah, it was very good.
It's good to hear.
So that brings us to the next item on our list, which is some discussion around the loan programs as they currently exist and taking a look at those. We really are looking to all of you to I guess give us some direction, but I think we want to just have some open discussion about the way they are structured currently and how we might restructure them to allow for maybe some more flexibility. Look at how are they meeting the needs of today, I don't know the last time that they were changed, but I think that it's been quite a number of years. Some of these programs, you know, artisan development, even housing stimulus, fire safety upgrades, the very specific categories, we have not seen a loan in any of these categories for, you know, I think since
6 years.
Stephanie's been here at least. So we would like some discussion around that and maybe look at even developing a microloan category for the smaller business startup, smaller amounts that, you know, we just to give you an example, we had a potential restaurateur come to us recently, and it's a couple, you know, they don't have perfect credit, they don't have a lot of collateral, they don't have, you know, a whole lot of money in the bank. They had, I think, between $7,000 and $8,000, and they wanted to open up in the former Panino's location. There was some work that would have needed to have been done to bring that, you know, up to a renovation that they could get their restaurant up and moving. They would have had to purchase some restaurant equipment. We had them working with the Small Business Development Center. They kind of went through all of the things that we asked them to do. They also went to COI, to Cody, to their development loan fund, and they, you know, based on our requirements and Cody's requirements, which I think that have gotten a little bit more stringent as of recently as well, they just did not meet the requirements that we need. Had we been able to maybe give them a smaller loan amount, maybe there could have been an opportunity for, you know, adjust the program a little bit. Maybe there's a place that they don't necessarily open up the full restaurant, but they have, you know, maybe some other options. So it just kind of, we keep, I mean, how many loans did we have to turn down in the last
I
4 or 5?
had another call today, this will be the third person since our last JLDC meeting, third business. Brand new, wanna start, all they need is between $5,000 and $10,000. One's for working capital, and, you know, just to get started. And that's it. So these people from, I couldn't even entertain the thought of a loan because we don't have anything, you know, that would fit them. Our loan parameter is we will cover 50% of the project cost. Well, that doesn't help anybody when they only need that, you know, $8,000 for, you know, a little bit of working capital, maybe some equipment. But I had an HVAC business that wanted to start. I had an insurance business that wanted to start. And these are people who already work for somebody else.
Right.
One works for TJ's and the other one works for Edwards Insurance, and they want to go somewhere else. We had another couple that I just heard from today. They already have a business here, a moving business in town. It was an LLC. I didn't get the name of it. This came to me from CCIDA. And so they lost their business during this COVID. So they want to start a mart, a little food mart across the 6th Street Bridge where the comic book shop is. And it's called Chautauqua Mart. It's an LLC right now. Yeah. So apparently they've already had their inspection. Larry is working with them to get a C of O. And, you know, they just need $5,000, you know. And there's nothing that we can really do to help them. Because if they just need $5,000, that means they don't have another $5,000 putting into the project. Right. You know, it's not a grand scale. It's just something small. And you can see all these businesses are needed, you know, in these areas. And all these entrepreneurs have experience. That they're not coming at us, you know, as just a dream. It's, yeah, they have done this for years. So.
Is that part of the criteria that they have experience in? And do you say
No.
there must be a certain
It's
amount
not currently, no,
of, what is?
but they have 50% match, or
Is
they
there
have.
anything else? As far as,
Collateral that is
Collateral,
project
yeah.
based.
well, I mean, as far as their
Their,
business background
their
and knowledge.
qualifications.
Yeah,
We look at resumes.
So
yeah.
I think the short answer to that is not really.
Yeah.
But what we've been talking about doing since even before January, when I came into my position, was we had started working with the Small Business Development Center more closely. They have actually been working on developing their programs, and they've gone through a whole evolution through COVID as well, but and I think we've talked a little bit about this, but requiring our loanees to go through a curriculum, to be able to show us a solid business plan, to be able to show us that they have a marketing plan, that they can do a budget, they can project out for the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, you know, to show us that they are serious. And so we've been talking about, you know, requiring them match is because we need them to have some skin in the game. Right?
Sure.
It can't just be us taking all of the risk.
Right.
So for for all of our loanees, we think that it's important for them to be able to show, you know, all of that kind of documentation. An established business that's been here for a number of years, that's looking to expand. Obviously, we don't need to see a new business plan, but we do need to see your growth plan, right? For someone who's just starting out, maybe they have experience in the business that they're starting out in, but they're a new business owner. So, okay, now we need to see that you understand how to put a business plan together, that you're taking the steps and working with the Small Business Development Center or some other organization to learn how to run a business. You know, it's not something that everybody just knows. So that's one area that we would like to make a requirement. And then, you know, the other part of it is, you know, how are we and this kind of goes into the next agenda item, how are we kind of working with them over the long term and checking in and making sure that they're hitting their targets. You know, with a micro loan kind of thing, you know, if we're talking $5,000, you know, we don't have quite as much risk in that. If we start getting into higher amounts, we actually talked earlier, and this will be news to you because Stephanie and I just talked about it after we talked last, is there an avenue for us to become an equity partner in the business, right? So if they, you know, they take out the loan, at some point we don't have to continue to be their equity partner, but over a period of time, if you borrow $100,000 from us and you decide that you want to move your business location, or you want to change your business plan, or you want to, you know, switch things up, you need to come back to us because you need our approval to do that. So that you're not, you know, we've given you a loan based on your proposal and what your business plan is and what you're planning to do. Now, if you're going to deviate from that, we need to be your sounding board and to walk you through that so that we know and we're comfortable with that deviation, because we need to protect our investment.
I will note that many cities, as they've been progressing and changing their development agencies, they have started to focus more on working capital and other investments as part of their development strategy. So this is actually a really great thing. There are a few cities that do and have created vehicles to hold an equity stake in companies. I think that's very unique. It's very Shark Tank of you, right? But you know, there is precedent for that, and it's paid off in other cities, depending on the type of business. Just requires a higher amount of scrutiny on those loans, right? I love the idea of the microloan. I love the idea of switching to working capital. Are you looking for guidance from this board so that you guys can make a draft? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And, you know, discussion, I mean, this isn't for us to just dictate to you, here's what we're gonna do. This
So
is,
the
you know.
lowest amount we loan is $35,000.
Right.
Yeah.
which half of a match is a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
which,
Yeah.
It doesn't really give someone who's just trying to start a business for the first time an opportunity to really,
right. Yeah, I like it. Maybe a $5,000 or a $10,000 loan.
Yeah, that's what a small business needs to kickstart.
Yeah, that's
Right.
a good way to put it, yeah. And it's like, it's the person, you had that 7,000 or 8,000, not enough, but maybe with another 5.
right, it could have, you know, kind of
Mhm.
brought them enough over
Mhm.
the threshold that they could have actually.
Can I suggest that you put a plan together and then like a draft and then send it out? And
Certainly.
you know, 'cause if you're not utilizing some, you can check some, and,
Right.
you know, whatever you think at this point needs to be reevaluated or restructured, you can put it together and then we can take a look at it.
Is,
With the changes driven by COVID, some of them are gonna stay.
Right,
And there might be another avenue you're not even thinking about right now.
yeah,
There's certainly some things that I think workplaces are not going to deviate from because it worked for them,
right.
us being one.
I wonder if there might be room for another category
That's
that
what
is
I'm
COVID
saying.
response or COVID like retooling also.
Yeah, and that, I think that's important to bring up because, you know, what kind of collateral are we gonna take? You know, when someone needs to retool their business, you know, maybe we have to look back at what kind of collateral, if any, that we would take for that situation, because it's an emergency.
I need
It's
to
an urgent
think
need.
adding on space with
Right.
social
Well, that's
Right,
the,
yeah,
the
Right.
part
Or,
that, you know,
Exactly,
yeah, they're thinking, well, we'd like to do this, but it's gonna cost
right?
Right.
5 or 10 grand to really do it right.
Yeah,
So you're looking.
The areas we had 20 employees now are at 10,
right.
right? You know, when you have places that can expand, obviously if some that can't,
Right.
but
So COVID response for expansion, a micro loan. I was talking to Crystal about the loans that seem to really, really work, that's the ones that we concentrate on, are the small business and the jobs and private investment. And Kim and Tony, you would know more about this than anyone here, and kind of lead us through the necessity for the jobs and private investment, you know, what the intention of that was, and kind of what it has turned into. I have fallen back on that loan program for people who need more than the 35,000. Like the Chop House, for instance, they needed 85,000. So, and we have nothing in here that would fit for that. So what I was thinking is, can we offer a flat out loan anywhere from 35,000 to 350, using JABI as the, you know, the crux for industry, and then a smaller, you know, different loan for, you know, smaller venues or adventures out there.
I mean, when JLDC started and things like that, it was a growing business community. So this fit into the makeup of companies creating and expanding for jobs.
Right.
There was always a big emphasis on
Creating jobs.
the jobs, like how many more jobs is this gonna create? There was always a question about if you're gonna add, if you're gonna borrow this amount of money, you're gonna do this. Is it 10 more jobs, 12 more jobs, 20 more jobs? That was the whole
Yeah.
purpose behind that. It was always in the plan. And it was
Yeah,
very important to
creating
look at
jobs.
creating
And
jobs.
I think even with a micro loan, I think we still wanna see that, we still wanna see how many jobs are you creating?
are there other metrics that we could look at? I mean, the only reason I say that, I think job creation is a very good metric, but it might not be the best one given COVID, right?
Sure.
Because,
I think you need to look at retention.
I think
Right.
retention might be an even, also a good metric to look at, because we might not need to be creating additional jobs in some of these, we might need to be retooling jobs. I would love to see a loan fund to promote co-working spaces or remote workers, some type of attraction to get more remote workers here in the area. I will say that the state is gonna be,
Furniture.
Right?
look at that, see? That's right.
Put your office
The,
at home and.
Just to give everyone a heads up here, for JLDC, that has been one of the state's priorities, going into this year and into 2021, which is, talent acquisition in Western New York. And part of that is, more remote workers, finding a home in Western New York, but being able to work for companies, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the US. And I really do believe, and I've said to the larger Regional Economic Development Council, that, Jamestown is a prime spot for that. Because it's a very, very low cost of living, and availability of internet access and, utilities, location, space. It'd be great to see some of that as well.
I remember too, a few years ago, there was a big discussion, several years ago, about looking back at some of these loans and seeing, did they do what they were supposed to do? So when they came in and said, we're gonna create this many jobs, we're gonna do this, did they reach those targets, did they reach those goals? Those are things to look at and see how successful were we
Yeah,
at targeting the right thing.
Right.
As another type of metric.
Yes.
Not that you're gonna pull, but, just to see, are we doing the right things on this, or are we?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, 20 years ago, JLDC gave me a loan. 20 years later, I'm still in business. I created jobs. I've built a reputation. So I've always been very vocal about voicing my appreciation for JLDC loans and the Small Business Development Center, because the two of them worked hand in hand together. Took me from not having a clue about how to run a business, just having a passion for cooking, to where I am today. So, and if COVID hadn't been along, it'd be a whole different story. But I firmly agree that you need to have a smaller loan available, because just somebody that wants to start a niche business doesn't need that $35,000,
right.
but make a sliding scale.
What would the terms be of a $5,000 loan or a $10,000 loan?
I guess that's what kind of coming to everyone here, what we were hoping is that maybe, we can figure out what these loan programs are. We thought the three, the micro, the working capital, a micro startup, and your traditional loan. And then kind of have us, take a team and try to work on that. What would the terms be?
What would we ask if someone wants a $5,000 loan?
I don't know
Are you
if
asking
you
like
need
interest
a 10-year
rates
loan.
or?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little higher interest rate, I don't know.
As it is right now, it's what, a 5, a 7, or a 10-year?
Right, yeah.
And you figured, if they really want the money, they can take a credit card advance
Right.
on a small amount like that. Look at what they'd be paying in interest on that
Right.
Yeah.
compared to what we might choose to charge them. So even if it was a point or two higher than the norm,
Right.
they're still making out
Yeah, right.
hugely beneficial.
So maybe that's, what does Cody, do you know what Cody's?
I think they stick with Prime Plus One. It's one. Yeah. And they just started their micro. And I don't see, I think it's just a Prime Plus One. And it's not listed here, but if there's more information, we can get that.
We can do some research too in other similar LDCs across states, kind of see what they're doing.
Great. Could you tell us just again which loan programs haven't been used in the past couple of years? Just so we can understand.
In the past few years, the technology has not been used. Artisan has not been used. Gialli's actually used restaurant. That was about 6 years ago. Housing stimulus has not been used, and fire safety. About 10 years ago, we had our last energy conservation with Dorian's. They got a new roof.
I'm hesitant on your technology base because of the COVID and the working from home.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's something we could,
Wonder if that
format.
Yeah, I wonder if it needs to
Right.
be retooled, because maybe it's too high of a participation.
Right,
Uh,
that's, when you talk about remote,
Yeah.
that's,
Mhm.
fits in that, I think, but $50,000 is a lot of money.
That is. And we have to kind of work together to know what this, remote worker is going to need, how much.
It could be, depending on, we as a company sent every employee working from home a desk and a chair. Because it was a temporary fix.
Mhm.
Now, for some, we are expanding their office furniture because they're going to continue to work from home.
What about
But
down
your
payment?
internet access, you're talking printing access,
Yeah.
you're talking,
Yeah.
all those things, kind of a standard on.
What about down payments for a house moving here as a remote worker?
I would get away from that, that's not business
Yeah.
development.
Okay. Sure is tax-based,
Yeah. Now, that's saying you couldn't partner with another agency who does those kinds of things.
Yeah. Kind of make it a package.
And have, say to them, when you moving your business here, this agency offers
Absolutely.
this technology
sort of
for your work from
incentive,
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna get into any down payment on homes.
Okay. We'll save that for.
For
If we expanded the loan program to handle some of these small loans, is the idea that the business consultant or consultant that we would be retaining would handle some of this administrative loan?
You're talking about Rashawn.
Yeah, so yeah, you're kind of talking about like sort of the next piece on our agenda. So what we were looking at with the business consultants, I guess, yeah, some of the administration in terms of working directly with, potential loan applicants to, right, there's kind of a place where SBDC lives and assists people, and then there's kind of a gap in some things. I think they would be looking to work more closely, like one-on-one, and be doing, for instance, the MWBE certifications. That's a long, really drawn out, really extensive process. So, they would be helping with that kind of thing, right? Like, getting all of the financials in order to be able to actually certify for those programs. Along with actually, something that we're seeing more and more that the state is requesting is service disabled veteran home businesses as well. So kind of working with them over the longer haul, where SBDC kind of helps on the forefront. There's, helping them get their LLC or their whatever type of business they're trying to set up, like get their, certificate of incorporation. Kind of get more into the weeds, if you will. And so that's where we were kind of looking at if we were to bring on a consultant to kind of fill that space between where we don't have capacity and where SBDC, I don't wanna say falls short, but kind of where they draw the line.
So as it is right now, what you're thinking is if we did roll out a microloan program, the vetting of the applicants and administration of that would all happen with the DoD staff?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Yep, we'll still do all of the vetting of every applicant. And that would still go through the same process where we present to the board and the board approves every application.
Great. Do we wanna talk a bit more about the MWBE Small Business Support Initiative?
Might you wanna go make a copy or something, because I do want people to look at the balance sheet profit and loss for IoT.
Okay.
talk about it?
Oh, yes, so.
Would you like me to, I can talk about it if you want.
Yes, so this kind of came to us, through an initiative that, Councilwoman, Graham Reinhardt brought to us. We historically have not had any specific programs or initiative to work more closely with, minority and women-owned businesses. And so it's, been brought to our attention that, there needs to be more awareness and more support around cultivating those businesses. And, Tammy mentioned that there are actually quite a few minority-owned businesses that are not really, they don't have their licenses that they really need, they don't have insurance, they don't, they kind of just, they're business. But we can't hire them to do anything, right? We can't contract with them. And then there's this space where New York State and even the federal government, anytime we contract with anybody, we have to make every effort to contract at least a certain percentage with minority and women-owned businesses. And again, now that service disabled veteran owned business is starting to become a higher priority. So Tammy brought that to us. We've had some discussion. We presented it, or they actually presented their ideas at the last meeting. We put together this request for qualifications and what would we be looking for in a consultant that would work to help cultivate that minority and small and women-owned business category, if you will. And I'll say, I think every effort that we can make to get more businesses, not only to get them on the books and legal and have their insurances and have all of that in order, obviously the better, but also to be I would so much rather be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, a contractor who is a minority or woman-owned business locally, than have to try to find somebody out of the area. And we are constantly finding ourselves, every time I have to fill out a waiver to New York State, asking for them to grant us a waiver because we can't meet our percentage, it's killer. So not only are we having a hard time finding those businesses locally, we're having a hard time finding them even statewide. And that, somebody who is certified in Syracuse is not likely going to want to do work here. It's not worth it for them to make that trek. So there is a need and there is a space for us to provide more support, but the capacity that we have in our department is not enough to really focus and lead this kind of initiative. So that's where this idea of potentially having, I say a small amount. We said $35,000. Like, what will it take to run this for 12 months, 24 months? What does that need to look like? And what are the qualifications that we would need in somebody to do that for us? So that's where we came up with this RFQ. Don't know if everybody has it, but I know it's been sent out. Don't we have 70 copies?
Is it under?
It is, yep, it's in there. And we don't have to go through it line by line at this moment in time, but I don't know what everyone's thoughts were on that. If you have questions, we didn't really have a chance to have discussion around it. At the last meeting, they presented and it was a long meeting, so, we just kinda wanna get your,
I hear your amount, how are we paying for it?
so that's where, that would be that's a question for all of you. Is that do you feel like that is a worthy investment? Should it be less? Should it be more? Is it is it a
Are you
worthy?
talking part-time person, you know, X amount, I mean, I guess
X number of hours.
I guess I would wanna see the expectation and
Mhm.
where you're coming up with the defense of 35,000. How you came at that number is a budgeted item, and what are your intentions of paying for it? I mean, it's not that I'm opposed to anything, but I also know what's coming in 1 month.
Yeah.
And I have concerns about what we as a city can afford. It's not that I think it's a bad idea, cause I wanna go on the record and state that, but
Yeah.
I really have some very strong concerns with the budget cycle. So if you're telling me you have money from here because, you know,
Mhm.
I just wanna see that.
Yeah.
So we're looking to hire someone who would specifically, this would be their job.
Mhm. And it would be, they would be consulting with any number of businesses. It would be, you know, they wouldn't come to work here every day.
Right, consulting
It
is the
would
way to
be-
go, cause we
right.
can't afford insurance.
Exactly.
I agree on
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it would be
So they're not a full-time city
two
employee?
different, no,
Okay,
and
I
it's
thought-
two different
yeah, there's no way.
firms. So Shannon with Greenland, with Green Sprout, I think it's just Green Sprout, maybe it's Green Sprout Consulting. And then Rasan Graham with Battle and Banner, I think is the name of his firm. They would be I won't say they would be the consultants. They are potential consultants.
Okay.
Because we would put out a request for qualifications, and that would be an open request for qualifications to anyone who wanted to submit that. So we would then add them to a list of qualified consultants that we've vetted, and based on what they submit to us, they would meet the qualifications that we're looking for. Then they would provide, right, let's say they worked with a client for, you know, I don't know, 50 hours, 100 hours, whatever that is. That would come out of that $35,000.
The other potential option that I see could be you build it into the loan amount, right? Or you make it as part of each of the loan programs, so that if there's someone that's eligible for a loan program or part of the cohort, it's either that fee is part of the loan, right? Or it could be a separate portion of it that JLBC pays for a number of consulting hours with that business. That might be another potential option. Right, maybe it's a consulting package that you get so many hours to help that business with whatever those needs may be, could be built in as part of the loan
So
package.
if they want, let's say they are looking for a $50,000 loan, they need 20 hours of consulting time to help them get whatever they need.
Yes.
And that's $5,000 worth of time. Their loan is actually for $55,000.
Correct. It's another
That's
potential.
an idea, but
Yeah.
I feel like these are some of the same people who might say to us, well, I need 5,000, or I need 10,000, or
True.
they might,
Yeah. And
I mean, it seemed like
Plain.
that was what Ken's point was, that these people aren't coming to
Yeah.
us with, oh, I've got $50,000,
Right.
can I
Right,
borrow
yeah.
another
Right.
50?
yeah.
They might have 5, and
So
they
if
wanna borrow
they're
another
looking
5.
for 5,
Mhm.
they're not going to have the ability to get 10 because they need to,
Right.
yeah.
The other
And
option,
like, I'm
the other
sorry.
option could be smaller packages, right? So maybe if they are getting a $5,000 loan, maybe the consulting is only, a couple, $250, right? $250. That could be something that we could build into an RFP to say, you know what, the smaller the loan, the smaller the amount. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
I feel like the smaller the loan, the more help they need,
Could be the
if that
case,
makes
yeah.
sense. Because they're probably coming in just looking to start out, and they're the ones that are going to have the least amount of experience and need the most handholding, whereas someone who's already kind of established, they're the ones that will be able to qualify for the larger loan amounts.
Could we maybe if we're doing an RFQ, maybe we talk about things as like just blocks of time?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we figure out how much a block of time would be, and then we kind of figure that out more on a case by case basis than say, all right, we're paying a consultant $35,000 for the year, and they're gonna work with
And
us.
it's kind of open-ended
And it would be the number of people that come into the program. That could be another option.
I have no idea what a consulting firm would charge per hour, but that's subjective.
Depends.
Depends, it's not gonna be cheap.
No.
Right, yeah.
Now, and my suspicion is that any consulting firm is going to want to know on the front end if they have this work lined up before they'll commit, because they have X time for X number of clients, and if they know that they're gonna be guaranteed 10 clients or whatever it is, then they'll set the time aside.
Mhm.
But if they don't know that and they don't have, I mean, I would imagine they would probably want a retainer even, right? I mean, at least something, so that they would set
Yes,
aside,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
The least restrictive of all of this would be to do an RFI or RFQ to get a list of consultants that
Mhm,
the
right.
JLDC or the department can refer people to, right?
Mhm.
Because we don't wanna just refer people out if they haven't responded, that these are
Yeah.
the services they offer. We now have a list of people that you can give to say, we think your business needs some assistance. Here are the individuals that have responded as potential
Mhm.
qualified consultants. And what we decide in terms of how much, if we wanted to move to a payment system or something like that, that's obviously a much different discussion.
Mhm. So something we've been talking about actually with our consolidated action plan, which is HUD funded, and this is obviously separate from JLDC, but I think it's very much related, is small business support. And we've been looking at, and the way we proposed our programs for this 5-year consolidated plan is there are some that are still prescriptive, but then there are a couple that are a little bit more flexible. And this is something that, because we've been working closely with HUD and we've had some monitorings, that they've indicated that we can have more flexibility than what we've been giving ourselves. So if we have a small business, so what we propose is we have a program for small business assistance, and there's flexibility within that, right? So, maybe this is something that could fit into that as,
Could we maybe use, if you're saying, maybe use a CDBG to
yes,
retain
yeah,
a consultant to do this part?
That funding might, so that obviously is a separate funding source
from this,
from
yes.
JLDC.
Yes.
That would probably have to go through Jura.
Right.
But.
And it would have to go through city council, it will have to go
As well
through
as
HUD.
the city council, yes.
But I'm trying to, right,
What-
like, where's the money coming from?
Maybe that would be
Does it make sense to use that vehicle instead?
maybe that would be a good vehicle to support, MWBE businesses. I mean, you all need that,
Right.
Jura needs that as part of,
Right,
your obligations with the state and federal government.
yeah.
Maybe that is a potential option, and then JLVC becomes the funding sources for the actual microloans and.
Right.
Right. Right, so the consultants would essentially be the feeder into the JLDC loan process, getting those applicants ready to actually apply for a loan. And to have a successful application by the time they come. think that the case for HUD is always, we have to meet national objectives, at least one of the three. And the biggest, and actually easiest one for us to meet is always, it has to benefit low to moderate income persons. That's most of our population anyway. It's not a hard stretch for that. And I think that that's, you know, a lot of what the microloan programs will also serve.
When I think of HUD, I always think of housing, but it's urban development.
Right.
Yeah, so the community development block
Yeah.
grant from HUD is our biggest allocation that we get every year, and it can be used for so many things that we didn't even know until we really started
Right.
working with our regional office.
I
So,
like
I
that
mean, it
idea.
can do things like neighborhood junk and debris removal day, right? We can do a lot of things. I think I like
I
that.
do too. I do.
So
We've
it's-
got some more work to do.
Pretty
Yeah.
intense application for MWBE.
It is, yeah, it is.
And that's where,
It
I was
is.
just looking at.
I used to do the recertification for my previous, the landscape architecture planning firm I worked for. So it was just the recertification, it wasn't even the initial, and it was really intensive.
We've, so our office has had to actually fight pretty hard to get some of those certifications through, especially when they ask for things that really are not relevant to the certification, like, you know, payroll going back like 10 or 15 years. Like, how is that related to you being in minority woman-owned business enterprise?
Especially if you're just starting out.
I get the payroll for maybe 5 years, but 10 or 15, is that, that's a little much. So oftentimes we've had to argue with the state to try to just get that
Yeah.
moved forward, which should not be that way.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some further discussion that needs to happen, but I think a draft of those loan programs would be great. You know, the other question that I have is if someone is a certified MWBE, would they receive any favorable loan terms?
I
I haven't thought about
I
that, but.
think that that's a really good. Yeah. I mean, I would advocate for that.
So I just raise it as you start to think about it and start to draft, right? There might be an incentive
Yeah.
to have more of those. As of right now in the city of Jamestown, there are only 5 MWBEs in the entire city. And there's no minority certified businesses, all women-owned businesses.
So are you talking about the lower interest rate or lower, what, like for the terms of the loan?
Yes, it could be a little, maybe it's a point less or a half point less, or there could be some potential there for being a certified and getting the certification. So we're gonna see a draft from you all, if you wanna circulate that?
With
Okay.
these 3, or actually there's 4 ideas, like with the microloan, COVID response, technology with remote workers, and still something with the JAP on the loans. I mean, it's still job and private investment, I think we still need that big portion in there, so when people like, you know, Schultz comes by or Dave Warren, we're able to help them in that capacity.
And do we want to roll working capital into as a
Is it a micro?
expense that is okay for, as part of the loan, like they can use
Yeah.
the loan for
Right.
working capital, or do we wanna create a separate category specific to working capital?
I think you should probably put a cap on it, you know, for working capital.
Why don't you guys propose something? I mean, you could include working capital the same as you include property acquisitions or renovations or things like that. But why don't you guys propose something, and then we can circulate around, we can provide some comments, and then try to have a more formalized discussion at the next meeting. Does that sound okay to folks?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll just really have to dig in on that, too.
I think it'd be helpful